Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this regular meeting of September the 17th, 2012 to order. I'd like to have a mover and a seconder, please, to suspend the regular meeting so we may convene the committee of the whole meeting. Moved and seconded. Any question? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. At this time, I would like to read for your information, for those of you presenting this evening, and for those watching via television, let me please explain that a committee of the whole meeting is a committee that consists of all members of council. The meeting allows council members to deal with issues in greater detail, but less formal than our regular council meeting. During the meeting, issues are not formally adopted, but recommendations may be made at the next regular council meeting. Remember, some of the key points are, and I'd like you to remember, council meetings are televised, and it's very important to introduce yourself and, if applicable, name of the organization that you are representing and speak directly into our microphone in a clear voice. When pressing the address and comments or questions to the chief of the chair, keep your presentation brief. 5 minutes only is preferable, would be ideal, and as council has several more presentations on the agenda. Once we've completed this, I will ask if there's any questions from council, and we will go from there. And at this time, I would like to invite our first Oh, yes. May I have the adoption of the agenda first? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ashley. Councillor. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. The first presentation this evening is from Miss Christine Kofed, Community Development Campaign Officer, the United Way of Northern BC. For the United Way. Would you please come forward? No, just sit yourself right there. And the green button is for you when you would like to speak. Thank you, Mr. Roden. Please continue.
Thank you, Council, Management, and guests for inviting me to speak to you tonight about the United Way of Northern BC and to talk about the work we do here in Prince Rupert and in surrounding communities all over Northern BC. In my role as Community Development and Campaign Officer for the Northwest region, I'm often asked, what does the United Way do exactly? The simplest answer is, we help people. The United Way of Northern BC helps families, babies, kids, moms, dads, older adults, people with health problems, people coping with depression, abuse, and mental illness. Our 3 focus areas are helping families who are struggling financially get back on their feet. We help people get healthy and stay healthy, both mentally and physically, and we help kids receive the education and opportunities that they deserve. The United Way may help a deaf child learn how to talk, provide food and shelter to a homeless family, or keep an elderly person in their homes longer. In fact, the United Way of Northern BC helps 1 in 3 people in this region. The second question I'm usually asked is, how do you do that? The United Way helps communities become stronger and more vibrant. We do this by engaging the community like we did here in Prince Rupert a few weeks ago. We start by asking the community what their priorities are and to identify the issues that are important to them. In the meeting we held at Northwest Community College, we heard community members voice concerns about the need for a youth program here. as well as alcohol and substance abuse education and trauma counseling for kids. We also heard concern about providing supports for young families, children having children, dementia support, and outreach to seniors, and the need for emergency housing for men. After engaging the community, we look at the root causes of problems and strategically invest in proven programs to address a broad range of issues. Our approach is community-centered, impact-driven, and outcome-measured. The United Way invests resources where they are needed most and where they will have the most impact to the most people. This level of helping is made possible because thousands of people across our region fill out a pledge form and pledge that $10 or $20 or $30 a paycheck, or by making that one-time donation or volunteering. They donate because they know 25% of the children who enter kindergarten in northern BC lack the skills necessary to be successful in school. They donate because they know that 20% of the people in the Northwest live below the poverty line. And they donate because governments continue to decrease social spending while our populations continue to age. Last year, the United Way of Northern BC raised a little over $1 million in campaign and invested $1.89 million in communities all over northern BC. This September, we kick off the 2012 campaign with a goal to raise $1.25 million. But the need is much greater, and in fact, it's estimated that $2.75 million is needed before we can even begin to adequately meet the needs of northern communities. So thank you for considering proclaiming September United Way Month. Together, we can create long-lasting solutions for northern communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions from any member of council? Councillor Carlick Pearson, please.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. How would someone donate or pledge, if you could give us all the information, since we don't have sound to the community, but at a later date we will.
All right. Certainly people can do a one-time donation or sign up with a pledge form through their company's payroll system, and they can contact me at my office to help set that up, and my number is 250-635-3701.
Any other member? Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Our next presentation is from Mr. George Dorsey, President of the Ridley Terminals, and his other staff members, which he will introduce when they all come forward, please.
Your Worship.
Thank you.
My name is George Dorsey, and I'm actually located at Ridley Terminal.
Yeah, when it's ready.
Okay, great. Thank you. Was that okay? I'm George Dorsey, and I'm here from Ridley Terminals. And Andy will introduce himself as well.
I am Andy Vandermeer. I'm president of the local ILWU, Local 523.
Thank you.
And I think we're here to show a common purpose. There are times when we find ourselves on opposite sides of the table, but here we find ourselves on the same side of the table. Our facility has been expanding, and in our expansion, we've reached out for and been successful in finding a number of people to expand our employment. But as you know, there are a number of projects spoken of for Prince Rupert. Some of those are becoming more and more a reality. Their call on the workforce is going to be very good, and at the same time very difficult for Prince Rupert to meet that call. And I think it was 2 years ago or 1 year ago, Councillor Torkelson was kind enough to pull me aside and say that I believe in one of our meetings that we needed to take care and think about a way to help the young people in Prince Rupert to find their way to trades and through some sort of internship and other opportunities. And so I wanted to ask for help. We are not educators. We are, however, very interested in helping to provide the resources and the opportunity for that to happen. And I wanted to let you know that we're trying to work with local colleges, and Michelle Bryant, who's with me here today, is taking the lead in making an effort to identify ways that we can actually create programs in the community. Now, this presents some challenges for Ridley. It presents some challenges because we want to make sure that we do this in concert with our existing agreements with the union. We want to do it in a way that we're sure is cost effective. We want to make sure we do it in a way that supports the community. But I think there's a commonality of purpose on your side of the table and on Andy's and my side of the table as well, to find that path so that the next 18-year-old that graduates here can see a path to trades which would lead to high-paying jobs locally, because there's an extremely high probability those jobs will exist 5 years from now. I'm not sure we'll be prepared if we don't begin that process now. That's the point of my visit. And Andy, have I spoken correctly?
For the most part, I think one of the things that's available is the trades we need are millwrights, heavy-duty mechanics, electricians, operators, first aid personnel, warehousemen, and so there's, it's easy enough to go out and get a course, but it takes you 15 weeks to get an operator's course. You can do that in a hurry, but you have to go and get some experience first. Nobody wants to hire a kid who's just taken a course. They want some experience as well. I think that 2009 or 2017 we're scheduled to put on about 29 million tons through our facility, which means that's basically 3 times the tonnage we're handling right now. It's going to not just stop there as well. It's also going to mean that CN is going to have to hire more personnel. I've quickly done the math. It's 1,000 cars a day that we'll have to unload about to keep up to that tonnage. So that's a lot of trains going back and forth. That's a lot of maintenance on the tracks. It's a lot of car maintenance. There's a lot of different things that can happen with just our expansion. I think that certainly it's available there, and I'd rather see locals get hired, people that want to live in Prince Rupert, because I have lived here most of my life, and I'd like to see the people that are going to stay here make this their home.
Thank you. I know Mr. Dorsey's been doing a lot of homework on the apprenticeship type thing, and I think it's absolutely great, because we have to do something to keep our young people here, because you people are doing such a great job out there that we're expanding, and we're not going to have the workforce. So I'm saying on behalf of my council that we'll try and back you in any way we possibly can.
Thank you. It's going to turn now to the young lady who started this whirlwind. Councillor, are there guidance that you could give us?
Councillor Thorkelson?
Gee, it's a long time since somebody called me a young lady. Like that. Not young enough to take an apprenticeship on, though. What I am interested is in what kind of ideas you have, because that has been our problem. I spoke with you, and I'm glad that Ridley Terminals is responding. I think I spoke to AECOM, which was here from BG, saying exactly the same thing. If you expect to have people who want to stay here, you can't just expect them to have 4 years experience with their Red Seal or 10 years experience in their interprovincial trade qualification to be able to come and work out of Prince Rupert. We have pumped out so many first-year electrical apprentices. We've pumped out so many, whatever the lowest ticket welder at the college, right? We've got kids that have gone through their millwrights. I've got a son who left town. He's a Red Seal TQ. He bought a house in Castlegar. He's not coming back. And as much as I wish he would, if he had a chance here, he applied everywhere here. Nobody would take him. He left town, right? Got a job with the construction. And you can only rob the construction trades for so long before you can't get anything built. So I don't know what your plans are, but whatever we can facilitate. When I talked to AECOM, they talked talked about taking people out of Prince Rupert and trying to train them. Somewhat Mar Terminals did, although that was much shorter. It wasn't a 4-year apprenticeship, but they took people longshore and took them down to train in Chicago or wherever they went. And I think that if we can make a plan to be able to do that, if there's some kind of co-op. At one time there was a cooperative apprenticeship program between the fishing industry, Alcan, and I think probably some of the mills in Terrace. And I'm not sure if the Rupert Pulp Mill was involved in that. But it was run through the Northwest Community College in Terrace, and it was a co-op program. And the idea was that that you would try to train the apprentices in each area. Now, I don't think it went very far because I think everybody started when their apprentices got to second year or third year, they started wanting to keep them. But I don't know if that's something that we could look at doing, whether people would say that's my apprentice and I'm going to keep that person because we've invested in it. And so I don't know. And thank you very much, Mr. Dorsey and Mr. Van Meren, because I really think that it is such. First of all, I don't think anything's going to work here if we aren't training our kids to stay. And the second thing is that what a waste to have our children moving out of town to Alberta and having industry here that is crying for employers. So, what kinds of things were you thinking about doing?
Well, the early steps are the simplest. We've identified our weaknesses. We're not educators, and we've turned to those who are. So the Northwest colleges are a contact point at this point. We've asked some guiding questions in terms of what it would cost to expand and create a program. We have very preliminary numbers. They're significant. We've then taken stock of how much money we would be prepared to provide, and then made a good list of people that we think we could reach out to, some of whom you've just spoken about, who would be contributors as well. We believe we could raise the funds required. We're certain that we'll make a major contribution in that regard. Now, the real questions that have to be answered by careful analysis are which are the trades that fit with the college system. I understand electrical program went recently to Terrace. I'm not sure I understand why, but there will need to be some analysis as to the trades that would be most appropriate here, and a refinement of the costs, and then more work on making sure the funds are available. But I think you can anticipate this being a project that's largely funded by industry, does not require a huge government outlay. Certainly would not turn to this group, perhaps the province or the federal would have some contribution, but it would be the minority of the funds required. And I think the objective would be to create something that's sustainable. It should be a sustainable business to train people to get good jobs. I don't know how we do that exactly, but it certainly should be a sustainable business.
Councillor Thorson?
Yeah, well, the college should be able to explain. I imagine they probably, and anybody who has a trade ticket understands there's so many schooling. There's 6 weeks of schooling for every year of trade, plus then you have to have so many hours per year before you can before you can be awarded your Red Seal interprovincial trade ticket. And so what I was interested in, what I've always been interested in, and I suppose coming from a fish plant, fishing industry, where we used to have probably 6 or 7 apprentices in over a 4-year, 5-year period, down to no apprentices in any of the trades. What needs to happen is employers need to now make the commitment to bringing apprentices on, and I don't understand another way around that other than if you have a co-op program and you look after first year this year and somebody else looks after first year another year, that kind of thing. But really, it's the training that's been the issue. It's the training that we've seen. Councillor Kinney was saying about his nephews who have their welding tickets had to leave town to find welding. I mean, I can think of 3 or 4 young fellows that I know that had to leave town because they couldn't find a job here. And so if we're talking about trying to create some system where we can share apprentices, I think that would be good. But it's got to be a commitment to get involved in the apprenticeship program. And years ago, I don't know if there was a subsidy from the province to take apprentices on, or if it was just the way that the system worked. Everybody had an apprentice or a number of apprentices, and depending on how many journeyman trades you had, you always had to bring somebody up to follow, so that you had apprentices plus apprentices in the third and fourth year. You're getting good value for your dollar, maybe not in your first and second year, but your third or fourth year, especially fourth year apprentices, have got to be probably pretty darn cost effective. So I think you get your money back in the long run. But so I was wondering, are you talking about trying to do that kind of thing, provide jobs for those apprentices, or so that they can achieve their hours?
I understand your question well, but I think Andy's the right person to answer your question.
I think once the requirements of our collective agreement are met, and what would end up happening if we could not fulfill the needs for apprentices from our membership, we would go out and find people that were interested and people that had made a commitment, whether they'd taken a pre-app course, is what I was thinking, that they'd taken, put some effort into getting that first step under their belt and making themselves more employable. That's the sort of thing that I think we'd be looking at. It would make sense. Somebody that's already committed to getting the training on their own. I know that there's funding available. I know that in a lot of cases, First Nations funding is available. They can get. We talked with the people from the Friendship House. We met with the people at the college, and there is funding available. There's courses available. It's just a matter of getting started and fulfilling the requirements of our collective agreement first, and then we'll be. I am looking forward to having some apprentices. I'm a tradesman myself. I've worked for 35 years in this trade, and I really enjoy having apprentices. It makes a tradesman play their A game.
Yeah, and I support everything Andy said. And in addition to that, this may sound a little off, but it's going to be easier this time. There are going to be new employers who are establishing their first workforce, and to the extent that this program fills other people's facilities, it's not a hardship for us, because it's a good thing all around for the community. Otherwise, they're going to be taking all of our good people. So we're delighted that they find good people in another avenue. It's not without self-interest that we say that this is not something that we have to take all the good applicants.
Councillor Ashley?
Thank you, and thank you for coming forward. I don't know a lot about the apprenticeship. I've learned a lot from Councillor Thorkelson. We've had some discussions, but I have a few ideas. Whether they'll work or not, I don't know. But my understanding of it seems to be that one of the issues is the hours that they need in order to get trained up. And then, of course, the money that it costs to train them up as their apprentices, because it's not until their third or fourth year where they're actually, kind of more experienced and able to help. And so I think when I compare apprenticeship part to where you go to university and you get your degree, the big difference is when you go to university and get your degree, you pay for it and then you get your job after, whereas apprenticeship, you're getting paid as you get your experience. And so one of the thoughts that I had, especially if we've got lots of industry coming in and knowing that this training needs to happen, is maybe there could be a system whereby students that have taken those first year courses, which you say are fairly easy to get, and then it's the training, could perhaps maybe get like loans where they could then be working for somebody as an apprentice with the idea that they then get trained up, and then now they're trained and are able to work, right? Because that's one of the big things is, as a business person, especially when the economy is not good, it's hard to afford to do that. So that's one thought that I had. And even looking at things where, and this is similar to what Councillor Thorkelson said, as the industries come in and they're hiring people for construction, seeing whether or not people can, like I'm hiring somebody that's qualified, then trying to make it kind of maybe an unwritten policy that you're also hiring somebody that's an apprentice, so that as we get closer to those days when those trained people are going to be needed, that they're there. Right? I even thought if it wasn't a loan situation for students, it could possibly be, there's lots of businessmen in the community that would probably be willing to take on an apprentice but can't afford it. So if somehow you could subsidize the wages, like if industry was willing to do that and have some sort of agreements that, they're doing it because they're getting some extra help, but they're also doing it for the good of the community. There's a lot of people in our community that I think would be willing to do that kind of thing, but of course can't afford it on their own. So those are a few ideas that I just wanted to share.
Thank you. Councillor Carly Pearson.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Just to touch on what the two councillors here had talked about, you are right in the fact that it's going to be dire straits if we don't start working on it now. And we have been talking to the college about possibly forming an umbrella with all the big industry players to put together a panel that we could, with union reps as well as all other experts in different fields that come forth and say that we need millwrights, electricians, captains, whatever it may be. There are a lot of concerns about it, but there are a lot of gaps also involved. Like, there is funding available, but the funding sometimes only pertains to a certain person who is on social assistance, somebody who's on EI, somebody who has been out of school, somebody who is a single parent. Like, it seems like there's always stipulations. So you have the common guy who's been in the fishing industry his whole life and wants to get into a different industry. He can't do it, for one, because no one wants to hire anyone without the experience with a ticket, right? So it's a catch-22. So I think as council and a panel that we need to assess that, where that gap lies. There are some major concerns about apprenticeships as well, because a lot of people don't want to take on apprentices. It's a really tough thing to do because it is a catch-22. The other thing is that with the Northwest Community College, we have initiated a program. It's called the Industrial Boot Camp that is going to be, and I'm sure that Ms. Bryant has heard about this as well, is that we're going to be training people with the basic skills, guys who are in that gray area, or women who want to get into the industry but have nothing, and mothers who want to get into an industry. They want to be able to, make money for their family, but can't. So this program will offer the basic first aid courses, the basic mechanics courses, welding, intro to welding, as well as the soft skills, computer, etc. And possibly have it as a co-op learning, whether they work at RTI for 2 weeks and they go to school for 2 weeks. Now, we're hoping that the industry players will be able to pay them while they're working, and they get to utilize those skills that they've learned the week before. And then at the end of their term, the companies would have the option of hiring them, but there'd be a stipulation, that you hire them if you like their work performance. But, I commend you on all the good work that you guys have done out there, and it's quite noticeable to not only Prince Rupert but internationally as well. So I'd like to be able to sit down and talk more about this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, Mr. Dorsey, we're going to UBCM in Victoria at the end of the month, and we will be meeting with the ministers in the various areas, and we are going to be promoting this, and we want to see about the apprenticeship program and everything come back again. I would like to thank all your people for coming. Michelle's going to come. I know we're going down to Hackett Straits on Wednesday. There's an opening there, and they're offering a lot of programs, and your young lady's coming with me, and we're going to go down there and see them. And if there's nothing else from council, I would just personally and on behalf of the city like to thank Ridley Terminals for just donating $5,000 to the mural project. We're very, very proud for that. Thank you. Okay.
It's our pleasure in a variety of ways to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dorsey. Yes, Joy.
I just want to thank you very much, Mr. Dorsey. It's not, being a union rep myself, I'm usually more in Andy's probably position, worrying about what my employer is thinking and trying to give them advice. I want to thank you very much for listening to what I had to say and working with the union to try to create some opportunities for young people in our community so they don't have to leave for Alberta. I want to thank you both very, very much. And I am so, I feel so gratified at this moment because I think that is the leadership that you provide, I'm sure will move other large industrial businesses in that same direction. And if we can nudge them forward, that would be an absolute wonderful thing to do.
Thank you.
Well, I thank you. We will do as much nudging as we can. It may seem counterintuitive, but it's actually hardest for us to bring interns in when we're in this state of growth. Because when we bring in interns, we have a senior person training them at the same time. And so the challenges, as we've outlined them, bringing people in for internships, raising some funding, and prioritizing the process. I think in that order, they're the most difficult. Bringing them in is a little bit more difficult than raising the funding, which is a little bit more difficult than prioritizing the process. But we promise to work on all three of those things.
Thank you very much. And thank you all from Ridley Terminals for coming. At this time, I would like to ask Ms. Sheila Gordon-Payne from the Health Service, she's the Health Service Administrator, to come forward with her entourage and introduce them, please.
I'm sorry. I'm a publicly funded organization.
I hope it's a blood pressure machine.
My fingers are small.
Thank you.
They're all motivational. And I'm seating my youngest person closest to the computer.
Okay. If you would like to introduce yourselves, please.
I certainly will, Councillor Kinney. Thank you, and thank you to Council for giving us this opportunity to speak with you this evening. As Councillor Kinney has said, my name is Sheila Gordon-Payne, and I am the Health Service Administrator for Health Services serving Prince Rupert and Haida Gwaii. And with me this evening, I have Jane Boutet, who is our Manager of Public Health Nursing for Prince Rupert, Haida Gwaii, and Michael Melia, who is our new regional, used to be a more local mental health and addictions manager, is now the manager for the region. So the three of us are here this evening to present to you, and the mayor has told me in his absence I can have more than 5 minutes, Councillor Kinney.
I am the acting mayor. I'll decide. Thank you.
Thank you. So this evening we're here, and Jane, if you want to go right to the second slide for me, please. We're here, just as the slide says, because Northern Health does recognize that local government input and participation is pivotal for fostering of healthy communities. And even the presentations that we've just had this evening, employment, education, those are all determinants of health for our community. So really, the closer we work together, the better it is for all of our citizens. And other examples of this that you would know locally is that it was actually political input and determination that started the Mental Health and Addictions Day treatment program. And as well, it was political interest that has started a process that I use where when I have hot spots in our community that are health related, I pick up the phone and phone the mayors and our MLA and give them a heads up, which I recently did on Friday, and I'm going to fill you in on that this evening. So what I thought we would begin with, given those examples of how we are already working together, mental health and addictions is always a very keen area of interest for our community. And I didn't think that I could come and present without having Michael Melia give an update on where mental health and addiction services and programming is for our community. So I think that's how we'll start the evening.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to present. As Sheila mentioned, the Adult Addictions Day Treatment Programme was an initiative that came about with the support of the City of Prince Rupert. And it's now been running since 2009, and it was the first programme active in the Northwest. It's been hugely successful in terms of increasing the continuum of addiction services available both in this community, and it's now offering services in both Terrace and Smithers, and we've actually just started to run programmes over on Haida Gwaii. Masset has been operational since December, and we're about to operate in Queen Charlotte, which certainly has an impact right across the Northwest. What that service has allowed us to do is really to engage with people and meet them where they're at, offer access to addiction day treatment on extremely quickly when there's the window of opportunity to connect with people. If somebody presents for service with an interest tomorrow, the chances are we can actually see them this week, which is a huge difference. The other key initiative that we've worked on in the past 18 months is building stronger connections with people accessing services through the Salvation Army and through the Raffles Hotel, through the shelter beds. In collaboration with Public Health, we've been sending staff into the Salvation Army Hall, and for a time we did go to the Raffles Hotel, providing services directly to people at those locations. And that's been a great opportunity to build connections with people that found great difficulty in accessing services. That program is continuing to grow, and we're evaluating at this time how we can develop that further. We have a range of ideas, from having an area set up with satellites for as we move into the fall season, and we'd like to extend that sort of across the community, as depression is certainly something that many people in the Prince Rupert area self-report with. Since January of this year, we've had a psychiatrist resident in Prince Rupert, and that's been the first time for about 5 years. So that's been really helpful in increasing access to psychiatry services. We are confident that as time goes on, that we will be able to sustain that service, which certainly has been very popular with both our physicians and with clients. We're aiming to move towards more of a group delivery service in partnership and collaboration with other agencies in Prince Rupert. It's a great way to build community partnerships and really make sure that we're not duplicating services. So we continue to develop those with the Friendship House, the Transition Society, and partners such as Salvation Army. And our other key target is looking at follow-up when people present at the hospital. If somebody is admitted into an acute care bed, our target is to follow up within 30 days from discharge. Our goal is to follow up a lot quicker than that, and also then to target people who are presenting in the emergency room with addictions or mental health issues. At the moment, we have a reasonably good follow-up, probably somewhere between 80 and 90% over the past 18 months. Our goal is to move to over 90% this year and 95% next year. And I think that will really start to engage people with our services, because that really is one of the challenging areas, getting people to engage. Staffing remains a little bit of a challenge, so we're actively recruiting both in the Northwest and across the province to find staff. We filled 2 difficult to fill positions, and we're hopeful that our final vacant nursing position will be filled in the next 2 to 3 months.
Thank you.
And the other item, which I said we had already been doing, which is the updates of any hotspots or issues that might be of concern to the community. To the mayor's attention on Friday, I spoke with him regarding our CT scanner at the hospital, which is part of our what we used to call the X-ray department or diagnostic imaging. And a CT scan would be the thing you might get when an X-ray won't quite show what is happening, and a CT scan takes us to the next level. Our CT scanner is something that community actually purchased for the hospital, a fundraiser that many thought would never happen. It did happen. We've had it for 7 years, and over time we've started to have some problems with it. What we found out approximately 2 weeks ago was that the cost of the repairs, the machine is now out of service, and the cost of repairs actually make it more cost efficient to purchase a new unit. So it took us a little while to get that far. At the same time, what we have found is that the building, which was an addition that we built on the hospital specifically for the machine, that building is actually shifting. And similar to the ICBC building, which I'm told they're not able to use anymore because of the fill that was used that year when it was built, we've encountered the same difficulties. Not to quite the same extent because the structure is safe, but it's enough of a shift that the machine company is actually saying to us that it may be part of what has given us the problems with our machine, and that for us to put a new machine anywhere, we need to address the building. So we have both of those things we need to address. What I want council and the community to know is that we have all of our Northern Health staff that work with purchasing and procuring equipment, as well as our people that take care of building buildings. Everyone's working together to address both situations. And the types of things we are contemplating are even whether we bring a portable machine up here, which is possible, and it just lives like a school portable in a playground, only it offers the service, or whether we actually buy the new machine and house it in a space that we have where our lab was during their temporary renovation. So we're working on all of that, and to cut to the chase here, in the meantime, until we have definite numbers and plans, we will need to access CT service out of Terrace. To do that, Northern Connections, the bus through Northern Health, is $10 each way. And I would encourage, if you hear anyone that is having trouble with the journey or with the cost, to have them phone me. And you all have my business card this evening. I'm already working with one resident that did not have the means or the ability to make that journey properly, and I'm working through that with her. So that's the kind of thing we've already been doing in community, so that we make sure we're working in tune with each other. Finally, next slide. I'm sure I've only been talking for 1 minute, Councillor Kinney.
Yes, you have.
So as Sheila and Michael both mentioned, Northern Health is very interested in partnering with community around issues that impact all of us. And to that end, over the past few years, we've been working to engage community partners with local community in an effort to improve the health and well-being of our local population here in Prince Rupert. And in February 2011, Prince Rupert Health Authority staff and local community leaders came together to form what was called the Community Integration Committee. And the purpose of the committee was really to identify priority health issues in the community collectively, and for the committee to provide some guidance towards integrating services and improving those services aimed at addressing the priority health issues chosen by that committee. And so far, the committee is still in existence, but the committee looked at all kinds of population health data locally for Prince Rupert, and has been working towards some plans around work with high-risk seniors and high-risk youth here in Prince Rupert.
In May, we had begun our committee in February, and in May, the province actually announced that they were going to have a Healthy Communities work initiative where they would focus on 4 key areas, which were healthy lifestyles, healthy start, healthy eating, and healthy communities. And one of the things they've suggested that we will close with tonight is they've suggested that communities have a joint community and health authority committee. We already have the Community Integration Committee, and we will suggest to you that we do that with co-leadership moving forward potentially. One thing I would say, the fact that we even have a committee already in place, for me that's an example of the spirit and interest that all of our players take in this community. That doesn't occur everywhere, and for all of us, I would say that's one of the most valuable resources that Prince Rupert has.
So just to give you some context around the work, in the province back in September 2011, the Ministry of Health came out and announced the BC Healthy Families Community Initiative. And that initiative was intended to, as Sheila mentioned, foster some partnerships between local government and health authorities, which was already happening to some degree here in Prince Rupert. They, however, took a look at really some more targeted issues, and they were looking at fostering health actions in defined areas like physical activity, healthy eating, tobacco reduction, the healthy built environments, and focusing specifically on priority populations and key settings in an effort to reduce chronic disease and to promote healthy weights in community. So Northern Health, along with other health authorities across the province, started developing some strategies based on this initiative. And from September 2011 to March 2012, Northern Health developed some resources intended to help encourage healthy communities development work across our area of the province. And we do have a toolkit that I've left with Mr. Grodecki, containing a lot of the materials I'll just speak to briefly here. But so Northern Health developed what was called local health area profiles, and those are up to date and can also be found on the Northern Health website. And those profiles contain a lot of population-level data for our community around health issues and what makes our people here healthy and also unwell. Northern Health also adopts some position papers around key behavioral risk factors, leading back to things like physical activity, healthy eating, tobacco reduction, etc. A guidebook for community leaders was developed, which is also contained in the toolkit, called Health Happens in Communities. And at the same time, Northern Health started to look at some structural changes to public health programming and to population health services in an effort to establish these healthy communities teams.
And I'll just speak very briefly to this slide to keep us moving. Certainly some of you, as Jane's speaking about what the province and Northern Health have been doing, would have been part of work with Northern Health both in Whistler at one of the past UBCMs. Also, the mayor receives the regular invitations to some of this other work. There is an error in the backgrounder that's in your package where it talked about many of you being at the province's session that were held at 100 Mile House this May. And I think that my executive assistant actually put in everyone that attended rather than those that went to that workshop, because I know certainly the mayor wasn't there, and so when you read that part in your package, or if you've already read it, that was a typo. I think we can just go from that, Jane.
Sure. So I'll just go on to provide some examples of some of the healthy community work that's already underway here in Prince Rupert. You'll notice the 2 photos here. The top photo is just an example of, I think it was mentioned earlier, employment being a determinant of health, and project work around the community. And so as the city undertakes projects and initiatives around our spaces and our green spaces, like the outdoor gym below, that's a really good example of some healthy community work the city's already undertaking. And Michael mentioned some of the project work already happening through the Salvation Army and the what we call the NOC project, which stands for Nursing Outreach and Counseling Services. The City of Prince Rupert is also, I'm sure that you're aware, engaged in community consultation sessions and a program to engage community leaders in what makes us healthy here in Prince Rupert. Through Northern Health, we have a strategy around men's health, and there have been a number of events that have rolled out here locally. Each year we host the All-Native Basketball Tournament here in Prince Rupert. Again, a great example of healthy, active lifestyles. And our senior center and initiatives like the Prince Rupert Community Gardens and Spaces are all really good examples of healthy community work.
We're going to finish just talking about the opportunities and then some ideas and suggestions for council. The purpose of this slide, you'll see it's the if you don't recognize it just as it sits, it's the Prince Rupert Primary Health Care Centre, which is the old Green Clinic. And I thought it was important to show this as an example of another successful initiative that was really driven by political and community voice, and that the communities told us that we, of course, had to address the increasing physician shortage that was happening here about 3 years ago. They said that we needed somewhere to have physicians be able to come and start a practice without having to set up their own practice. Physicians that remained here certainly echoed that, and for any of you that were here 2 to 3 years ago, you would have remembered our 5 and 6 hour emergency waits, which were unusual for us, and a large percentage of our population didn't have a physician to go to, which is of course the worst thing you want to happen, is not to have a regular doctor if you do become ill or one of your family members is ill. So Northern Health did commit and begin the Prince Rupert Primary Health Care Centre. We still are recruiting physicians to the centre. Right now we have 2 physicians actively working out of the centre. One of them is now going regularly to Lac Willam's as we respond to our Aboriginal community needs and their hopes. We also have 2 nurse practitioners working out of the centre. One of them is devoted completely to providing care in Lac Willam's, Hartley Bay, and Kitkatla, and she spends her life on the road with us as her home base. She is there. We continue to be interested in working with community partners and the city for whatever other services we might offer out of the centre. And we do the travel vaccination program out of the centre as well. It could be utilized more fully. So that would bring us to the last slide, Jane, which is really, and this again was in your background, or that's in your information package, and what are the takeaways that we would like council to go away with. We've done 7 key points there. I would like to draw your attention at this time to 3, maybe 4 of those. The first is that under Healthy Communities Committee and continued participation in the Community Integration Committee, I would suggest that those are one and the same, and we don't need to reinvent something simply because the province now would like us to have what we already have. I think we can include anything new within the mandate, and we are certainly in hope that either someone from Port Edward's Council or someone from Prince Rupert's Council, the mayor or a councillor as a delegate, would step forward to co-chair that committee. Right now it's myself with a really strong cross-section of community leaders and stakeholders. It's a really strong group. So that would be one thing that we would want you to take away for your consideration. The second thing would be that we work together more closely to develop a healthy living strategic plan, and I would say that we could easily increase our work that we do with Mr. Krekic on the official community plan and what the city would like that to look like. We're very open to that. And lastly, we've put in there the joint pursuit of all healthy communities funding opportunities. And I've put that in there for 2 reasons. The first is that there is a new grant available, another $20,000 on the table for any of this work. Doesn't require matching, has an application deadline of December 1st. You have people in front of you right now that will help write that grant, do that grant. We just need to work with you to explore what serves our purposes as a community. So that's sitting there. And the other, the reason I'm pushing that again is that we have just recently missed out on the big provincial grants that many other of the northern communities got and we did not get. Smithers got $300,000. Haida Gwaii got over $400,000. Terrace got $300 and some $1,000. Prince Rupert, somehow we didn't maximize whatever we needed to do to get in on that funding. And I don't want to see that happen again. So we are here to serve you for every penny and opportunity we can get for our community. And we will do that by working together and putting our strongest foot forward. And that is, I'm aware of the time pressures. I'm sure that was really close to 5 minutes. And I do appreciate Council's attention and your time this evening. I hope you enjoy the reminders that we have given you around your desk, whether you got the nut check golf balls or the HIV headphones to wrap it up, and the flashlights so that we can show the way. Hopefully you'll keep that with you just for long enough for us to get this work going. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheila. Is there any questions from Council? Councillor Ashley?
Thank you guys for your presentation. My question is about the committees that you're asking us about, because earlier in the presentation, Sheila, you were mentioning something about a joint committee. And is that what you were talking about at the end here? That's the committee you were talking about?
The initial committee that was started in February last year, Northern Health had moved ahead to form community committees, and we began with a strong start. So ours is in existence. It does sometimes falter with everyone's calendars and everyone else. The province and Northern Health feel that it would be stronger if it was co-chaired, and so that not only the public organization will was there, but the political will was there. So we think if we work together, it would be stronger. But it is the same. It's the same group and really the same mandate.
Councillor Rice.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm curious with you sort of implied that it would most likely be the mayor that would sit on this same committee since he's already on the integrative, I'm sorry, I forgot the name. So I'm interested as a councillor. I don't know if I'd really want to co-chair or chair, but I'm very interested in these sort of community health initiatives. I'm curious to know what sort of commitment is expected, just so I can...
Thanks, Councillor Rice, and Jane, feel free to jump in because quite a bit of this is within public health's mandate as well. Michael is also at the table because we've put our leads at the table so that what community decides will do the work behind it. So it doesn't take a lot of time. The goal was that we would meet 4 times a year, and that for any initiatives, our initial topics or areas that we have chosen to work on are seniors at risk and youth at risk. We had many areas of interest when the group first came to the table, and those were the first priorities. Then for those, so that you don't have a whole huge table working away on this, a more specific working group actually goes to work on whatever the table or the interested parties want the project to be regarding that. So it's not a huge commitment. The reason I say mayors or councillors is that I'm aware of the pressures on the mayor's time, and because of that, I wouldn't want to have no one there with us. So the mayor, an alternate, we're open to any of that.
And I would add that there's always, even if you're not co-chairing, the doors are open if there's an interest to participate on an active working group or on a specific project or provide some direction or leadership. Please come.
only because I'm a really good multitasker. I was perusing some of the, I think the items that you might have printed out for Mayor Musalem, and of course I'm always interested in the stats, and it's really interesting to know in the Northwest how we top the charts in so many categories. We are fatter, we have the highest amounts of sexual assault, we die sooner, we have more car accidents, and the most preventable admissions to hospital. These are really interesting and surprising things about our community. I did have to try and find something positive, but I find it interesting to know that we have some of the best air quality in the province. And I always thought we topped the charts in STDs, but Vancouver Island beats us with sexually transmitted diseases. So we're doing well in a couple of areas.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. We're also the most depressed, and anyone that was at the Whistler UBCM would have been around the table when we talked about that. And it's not on its own; it's as a product of so many more of those things you're discussing, Councillor Rice. And I would say our biggest positive, again. We already have the committee. We already have interested people. We already have stakeholders. We have employers that have come to present today that are interested enough in our community to be here with you. So that's our strength. And many hands make light work. So we're here for you to put us to work and for you to join us.
Thank you very much.
My only last comment, is that I wanted to definitely say that it's really unfortunate that we missed all those grants within the granting cycle. So I hope that doesn't happen in the future and that people are a little bit more connected and engaged, that we don't miss out on those opportunities. Thanks.
Councillor Ashley?
So on that note, I'm just wondering in terms of, because I don't know exactly how people find out about the grants or that, is there any communication process between when those grants come out and how we find out about that?
They are circulated. Those last big grants were circulated through the Premier's $30 million, I believe, in funding that she released, and I remember bringing that to Council's attention. For whatever reason, and staff may be able to fill you in more, I wasn't involved in the process, but Prince Rupert didn't make the cut.
Thank you very much. Councillor Thorkelson?
Thank you very much for your presentation. I was just wondering, we because of a couple of presentations we've had, we have sent out a letter, and I'm sure that Northern Health responded with regarding a meeting that we're going to have on, I guess, what is lacking in the mental health and social support system in Prince Rupert, and again, I think it's part of the thing of the community working with Northern Health and working with each other and working with the agencies in town to find out what we can do to make things better, so there aren't so that the help that we can provide in our community is targeted the best way possible. So I'm glad you're nodding that Northern Health is going to be part of that, because I think that's a very important meeting.
Thank you once again, Sheila, and your fellow workers, and we'll see what we can do. And if we can be of any help, even with the Skeena Queen Charlotte Regional District, Councillor Ashley and myself will be the first ones you can approach. Thank you. At this time, I'm wondering if there's it's question period from the public. If there's anybody in the of the public that would like to come forward for anything with regards to the city, etc. For the second time, is there anybody who would like to come forward? And for the third and last time, is there anybody who would like to come forward? If not, I'd like a mover and a seconder to adjourn, please. Second. Thank you. Question? All those involved? Oh. in favor? Good. Carried. Now I'd like to adjourn and convene our regular council meeting. I'd like to have a motion to call the adoption of the agenda. Anna, okay.
Excuse me, Your Worship, we have one additional item. Under 11 additional items will be a recommendation from staff regarding the acting mayor schedule.
Okay, under
11.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. I'd like to go to the minutes to adopt the minutes of the special council meeting of September the 4th, 2012. Is there any errors or omissions? If not, do I have? It's been moved. Is there a seconder? Seconder. Question? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. That the minutes of the regular council meeting of September the 4th, 2012 be adopted. Is there any errors or omissions? If not, may I have a mover? Seconder? Question? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on, we have no petitions or delegations. We will go down to number 6 on the agenda, reports and recommendations. 6A, a report from our city planner regarding application for development variance permit number 930 on 11th Avenue East. Mr. Cricket, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a second report on development variance permit for residents located at 930 11th Avenue East. The attached application is for variance to the City of Prince Rupert zoning bylaw maximum height regulations, which in section 5.2.3 subsection A defines maximum height for principal building at 9 meters or 29.53 feet. The result of this variance will be an average height, and I have a calculation sheet on the overhead projector. The average height would be increased to 11.2 meters. There's actually a typo in the report I didn't recognize until just this afternoon. It says 11.2 meters and 39.67 feet. It's out in a text. It should read 36.67 feet. At the average street grade, it would be at 9.45 meters or 31 feet. This is this is a new build infill in an existing neighborhood. In your report and on the overhead is a context map. The property is located kind of equal distance from Conrad School and from the Hayes Creek. This specific lot is located on a low side of the street. This is the view from opposite side of the street. Existing houses on either side. This is a picture of where the house will be located, where I am pointing the cursor. The public notifications were issued immediately following September 4th regular council meeting. As at the date of this report, no comments were registered or received, and in fact, there were no comments received until 4:30 this afternoon. Considering that the proposed building is on the low side of the street, and additional height will not obstruct the view nor sunlight to the neighboring homes, the recommendation is to approve this application. That's my report, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Carlick Pearson, please.
Excuse me. I'd like to recommend that we move and approve this variance.
To a second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Question?
Yeah, I'm not opposed to somebody having a foot higher, but I couldn't understand the rationale. I read this after, and I probably should have asked about it at the last meeting. But so they've filled, and they don't want to keep filling, and so why would that make their house taller, not shorter? I couldn't quite understand the rationale. I just was wondering how big is the house next to them? They're going to be a foot taller than that gray house. Is that correct?
It would be within a context of approximately 1 foot taller than this highest ridge here, from the street level. I do not have calculations for average heights for this house here, but I do have calculations for the average heights in this building. So essentially what happens in our zoning bylaw, on the houses that are located on a grade, we average the height by using this kind of a formula here. And the council has tasked me to review this and to bring it back in the near future, which I will. For the time being, that's how we calculate our height. So we consider the average height based on 2 points of the grade here, and so the more fill that you bring in, the more that you can accomplish your lesser average height of the building.
The more you fill, the higher your building gets. Is it correct?
The more fill that you bring in here, the lesser value. So if your height here is higher, then this line would intersect at a certain point, let's say approximately here, which just for the conversation purposes we can say it would be 10.9 meters. So if we would raise this point to this point here and draw a straight line from this point to this point, the line would be crossing at a higher level here. And therefore it would reduce the average height of the building.
So if the back wasn't as low as the back is here, then the average height of the building would be lower? Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 6B, a report from the Chief Financial Officer, re Schools Community Connections Resolution. The recommendation is that Council pass a resolution supporting the School District Number 52, Prince Rupert, application to obtain fund pursuant to the School Community Connection Program to build a performing arts studio on the campus of Charles Hayes Secondary School in Prince Rupert. Mr. Roden, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Basically, the resolution is the report. The School Community Connections Program has been around for quite a number of years. The consultation process seems to be getting less and less each year, which I guess is fair enough because I think the amounts of the grants are now less. The school district has approached the city and asked for the city to support their grant application this year. They're hoping to build a performing arts studio at Charles Hayes School. The application package is enclosed. They have support from the Leicester Centre of the Arts and also from the Prince Rupert Concert Society. There's no financial implication to the city. I ran the question across by the city planner, Mr. Creckett, and he's advised that from the perspective of land use, the project is appropriate pursuant to the official community plan, and it fits the zoning of the property. We do caution the school district that supporting their grant application is a support of their grant application only, and the project will still have to be required to abide by all parking, signage regulations, setbacks, and design considerations of any other project, and would have to come forward. So by giving this approval, we're simply approving it, the idea of the building, so they can go forward with their application as opposed to approving their actual design and location at this point in time. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Creckett?
Also height.
Thank you. And if we take A plus B minus C, okay, got it.
Is there any questions from council? Councillor Ashley?
Not so much a question, but just the English teacher in me. In the recommendation, I'm just there where it says fund. I'm thinking there needs to be an S on the end, and I was going to move the recommendation with that change.
Thank you.
Do we need a seconder to that? Okay, Councillor Garlick-Pearson. Yes, Councillor Thorkelson.
I was just wondering, is this supposed to be replacing what is the band room at PR? That's fine. Thank you.
Question? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on. 6C, a report from the Chief Financial Officer, Permissive Property Tax Exemptions Policy. The recommendation that Council either provide direction to staff on any additional changes policy or that Council approve the policy. Mr. Roden, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is something that started through the Council's strategic plan. They indicated they wanted a permissive tax exemption policy. Work began on it this spring. It came to Council in June. The proposed policy was circulated to all the organizations currently getting permissive tax exemptions. We did receive a number of responses. The school district wanted to be assured that it would still be able to receive a permissive tax exemption. The Legion was concerned about the fact that the property they had was not being used to provide a service, and they had concern about that. It came back to Council at the September 4th meeting, and at that meeting, Council started talking in general terms about the upcoming 2013 financial plan and the difficulty of balancing it, the ability of taxpayers to continually see tax increases. There was conversation about the Legion, the cycle that the proposed policy suggested for the approval of tax exemptions in the future, how that would work. And after quite a bit of discussion, Council passed a resolution directing staff to prepare a 2013 permissive property tax exemption bylaw with a number of fairly significant changes. The first change was that certain properties, which we've called designated properties, were going to receive 100% exemption. Then the church parking lots were going to, their exemption was going to be reduced to 80% in 2013 and then to 60% in 2014. Annunciation School was to receive a permissive tax exemption like a public school, to put it on the same footing, and all other entities by and large were going to receive permissive tax exemptions of a reduction of 20% in 2013 and an additional 20% in 2014. With regard to the permissive tax exemption schedule, it was discussed, and the sense from staff was that council wanted to set up a schedule for permissive tax exemptions so that each council would, during its tenure, have an opportunity to debate the permissive tax exemptions and set the rates. So what we've done is we've incorporated these changes into the proposed policy that we've designed. We haven't got into the specifics of who gets what exception because this is supposed to be an ongoing policy that may change from year to year or from council to council. So it's basically an idea to trying to give to the community what the criteria is for receiving permissive tax exemptions and how the permissive tax exemption process is going to operate, as opposed to the specifics of any single tax exemption. So the language regarding the council direction for 2013 and 2014 is not in here. I have attached a copy of the amended permissive tax exemption policy, and I've tried to show where the changes would be by using a black line copy, which hasn't come out as well perhaps as it could have because it didn't come out in color, but one can see where we've gone from a 5-year cycle to a 3-year cycle. The application due dates on that cycle have changed, and the example is also changed, so it shows to a 3-year exemption. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Roden. Is there any question from council, please? Councillor Ashley?
I'm going to move that council approve the policy.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Carlick-Pearson? Question? Any? Councillor Thorkelson, please.
I voted in favor of this last time, but I was just looking at this. I have a question because we didn't have this handy-dandy sheet of Mr. Roden's last time. And I am wondering, Mr. Roden, I'm looking at your sheet of the what the exemptions will look like. Here, and I was wondering, it says 2013, and that's the amount of exemptions we will give, and that will be a 20% reduction. Is that correct?
That's correct.
First call.
Yeah. If I may, Your Worship, this is part of the permissive tax exemption bylaw, which is coming up later on in the agenda. And there might be enough. We could go through that when we get to the bylaw, the actual bylaw that's being passed, if that would work, Councillor Sarkelson.
Yeah, but this is what the policy would create, right?
No, the policy is basically just outlining this proposed 3-year cycle, the type of criteria that organizations have to fulfill to be considered eligible even to receive a permissive tax exemption, and the type of information that the city will require those organizations to supply. And it's more an administrative process portion of it. The actual council resolution saying please draft a bylaw for 2013-2014. That is mentioned in here because it was all part of that one discussion, and perhaps a have made it unnecessarily confusing, and I shouldn't have mentioned it. But the actual conversation there on what that direction from council will look like for 2013, 2014 with the reductions in the permissive tax exemptions, that's all part and parcel of the bylaw, which is in the bylaw section of the agenda.
Thank you.
So this is the result of the bylaw, in the bylaw section of the agenda.
That's correct.
And maybe I've lost my place, but aren't we on page 28? And that talks about the exemption, right? And so it's council, by either approving the proposed permissive tax exemption policy or by giving additional direction to staff, will either complete or further the process of developing a policy that will fit the needs of our community. Oh, on the yes. Yeah. What I'm concerned about here is I've been really thinking about it, and I understand how I understand that it's attractive that people are able to make a decision ahead of time. But I have a real problem with reducing by 40% over a series of 2 years. A small section, a small bit of savings that we have with parking lots and with non-designated properties. And I don't have a problem with doing a 20% reduction for this next year. What I have a problem with is making it 40%, making a decision now for 3 years down the road, when in 3 years down the road it may not be necessary to cut by 20%, an extra 20%. And that's what my concern is that, and I know after Mr. Roden's probably going to throw darts of fire at me, because I did think it was a good idea to have a long-term policy from a planning perspective, from somebody else's planning, and also from council's planning. But this will be for 3 years, and while I can see a necessity or a reason for reducing it by 20% for the following year, I'm not sure if we have to reduce it by a following 20% the next year. And when hopefully we'll be seeing something coming online in 3 years, Mr. Roden, or 2 years?
If I may, Your Worship,
yes.
If I can perhaps just guide us back a little bit, we've got two things on the agenda in front of council regarding the bylaw. The first one is the policy, which basically says administratively, this is how we think we'll handle the permissive tax exemption bylaws in the future. Because it's a policy, council can follow it or not follow it as it wishes, because it's council's policy, but it is supposed to give some general guidance to the community on what council's expectations are going to be for obtaining permissive tax exemptions. Okay, so that's the first piece, and that's the item on the agenda where we are right now, which is 6C. Later on in the agenda, there is a permissive tax exemption bylaw that does go into the fact that it is 3 years, it is 20% per year, and my recommendation to council would be decide if this is the policy that you want. Do you want to have a policy that basically suggests that each council will look at it every 3 years, or do you want to have a policy that essentially says that council will continue to look at it on a year-by-year basis? I think that's sort of the crux thing we have right here. And then later on in the agenda, get into the discussion of if we are going to go with, say, a 3-year cycle, do we want to just have a 120% reduction, or do we want to, because we are in a fluid situation and things may get better in the future, I believe they will. I don't know about 2014, but certainly by about 2016, I hope our financial situation should be significantly better. The council may wish to direct staff to take this proposed bylaw and change it to a 1-year bylaw, and we could simply do that by just saying we're just going to make this a bylaw for 2013, and 2014 and 2015 can look after themselves when those dates come. So again, perhaps we could just, if we focused on whether or not we wanted to have a policy that had a 3-year cycle to it for the approval of the policies, or just strike that whole portion out and just say, fine, we like the idea of there being criteria, we like the idea that communities have to present the following information in order to get a permissive tax exemption. But for the time being, this council is content to evaluate permissive tax exemptions on a year-by-year basis.
Councillor Ashley.
Thank you. So my question, and this is related to this. So right now the policy is saying, look at this like every 3 years. Each council would look at it at once. So my question is, if we decided to pass this policy, and we found like next year or the year after, like somewhere during the 3-year cycle, or any council at any time found that circumstances had changed, can we not bring it back and then make a change to the policy or do that? Is that possible?
The council can change a policy whenever it wants. Council can also amend a bylaw. So, for example, council could pass this permissive tax exemption bylaw, and let's assume that something good happens and there's a major industrial development and we actually get to levy an assessment on it in 2014. Council could go back and amend this bylaw so that in 2014 everybody got 100% exemptions if that's what the council of the day wanted. The only advantage of doing the 2 or the 3 year thing is to give some kind of certainty to organizations that this is what council is intending at this point in time, which incidentally gives a lot of these organizations an opportunity to apply for other sources of funding and saying, we do have to pay taxes, and can we get that portion funded? I believe the province does fund organizations that have funds for municipal taxes if the taxes have to be paid.
Councillor Ashley.
So that's what I thought, but I just wanted to clarify that was a rule. And this is kind of about both things, but it's applicable. When I look at this, I think that I believe in preparing for the worst and hoping for the best. And we've been, since I've been on council and other people have been on longer, we've been hoping and hoping that things are going to get better, and things happen, the economy goes down. We can never predict the future. And I would like to have people have at least a sense of, it might get worse. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully something will happen and we'll be able to not have to do this. But I would like to provide certainty to people, this is what we're going to try and do to kind of make sure that you know how to plan for this.
Yes.
And then hopefully be able to, back away if we need to. And I think if we have a policy that says we're going to put something in effect for 3 years, we always know we can come back to it, but I think that it just gives certainty, because I think about when we do the grants or we do the permissive tax exemptions, people are always kind of every year, Am I going to get it? What's going to happen? Where's my money coming from? And I think if we can give them a little bit longer period of time to plan for, if they plan for stuff and then all of a sudden we've got more money to give them, then I think that's great. But if we don't, at least they've kind of planned for it. And I think that all of us feel that we don't want to be in this situation where we're having to kind of pull back these things. It's just an unfortunate economic situation we're in. So that's kind of how I'm feeling about the policy, is knowing that we always have the ability to change our mind if circumstances change. I actually am in favor of the policy.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Question? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 6D, report from the Chief Financial Officer, July 2012 monthly departmental report. Mr. Roden, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The attaches July monthly operating report. I'll give my usual blurb that this is a snapshot in time. It's certainly not fully accrued at this point in time in the operating budget. The revenue streams, by and large, are on target. I think everybody has heard that we've had some problems with a piece of equipment at the recreation center. Under the community charter, what happens is that if you don't if a type of expenditure hasn't been approved in your financial plan, then you need to bring it to the attention of council, which I'm formally doing now, and that we will be bringing an amended financial plan to council later on this year, which will include the cost of probably a new chiller. Pardon me. So that will be coming forward. The utility budgets, the revenues are on target except for the water budget, and that's a result of the fishing season hasn't been as great as we had hoped it to be, and so the canneries haven't used quite as much water as we'd wanted them to. Expenditures, by and large, are fairly on budget. When you're looking at the utilities, you need to recognize that in the fall and winter, we don't do a lot of work on the water and sewer in maintenance, so that their expenditure pattern is not 1/12 per month. It's actually they spend more money in the summer and then they slow down again in the winter. Capital purchases, a dump truck tender has been let, and it was purchased in August. It'll be shown on the next statement. The excavator tender has been let. Plow truck tender has been let. The phase 2 of the surveillance cameras is now ongoing. Information technology, a quotation for new phones for City Hall has been issued, and to go with the vote, the voice over internet protocol system that's been implemented. The recreation complex is reviewing the central heating system, and the construction of the new recreation complex sign has begun in August, which again we'll see those expenditures then. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Roden. Is there any questions? Councillor Ashley.
Thank you. My question is because it's regarding the new sign. And I remember hearing about this, but a lot of people in the community either didn't hear when all of this happened or how it happened. And so there's lots of questions of why are we putting up this new sign and why are we spending all of this money. So what I would like is if staff could maybe give an explanation of our contractual obligations and how that's all come about.
Mr. Roden.
Certainly, Your Worship. The recreation sign has been an ongoing project for quite a number of years. It's been in our budget at least for 4 years, I believe now. How the situation arose is that the city entered into an agreement with PepsiCo, and they gave us a certain amount of money each year. And in return, what they were going to do is that they were going to provide a sign, and we were going to provide I don't have all the details at hand, but it was a joint effort. And what had happened is that we had difficulty, one, in financing the sign, and then two, locating it, and simply we didn't have enough staff to address the issue of putting the sign up until this year. So it's been a long-term thing that's been going on, and it's been in front of at least 3 different financial plans. So it's something that we're contractually committed to do it. We've received the money from PepsiCo, and now we're just finishing off our portion of it. And I believe that it's supposed to be completed by the end of September.
Thank you, Mr. Rode. Does that answer your question, Councillor Ashley?
Yes, thank you. I knew what the background was, but I just, for people that didn't know, I thought it's probably best that we just refresh people's memory. I was just going to move the recommendation that we receive this report for information purposes.
Do I have a seconder? Question? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, moving on. Under correspondence, 8A, we have a proclamation request from the United Way of Northern BC. The recommendation is that Council declare the month of September as United Way month. May I have a Councillor Carlick Pearson?
I'd like to move that we declare the month of September as the United Way month.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Question? All those in favor? Again? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to bylaws. Bylaw 10A, Alarm System Regulation, Bylaw number 3325-2012. Recommendation that Council introduce and give first, second, and third readings to the Alarm System Regulation Bylaw number 3325-2012. Is there any question from Council? Do I have somebody to make a motion, please? Moved by Councillor Ashley. Second by Councillor Judy Carlick Pearson. Question? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Bylaw B, under bylaws B, 2013-2015 Permissive Property Tax Exemption Bylaw number 3326-2012. The recommendation is that Council introduce and give first, second, and third readings to the 2013-2015 Permissive Property Tax Exemption Bylaw number 3326-2012, or provide direction to the staff of the changes that Council would like to incorporate into the bylaw. Councillor Joy Thorkelson, please.
I move the motion with an amendment that under the property categories, so I'm going to refer to page 51, that places, under property categories, that non-designated properties, which we have a list of that we can read, would receive a exemption of 80% in 2013, 14, and 15.
Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Carlick Pearson. Any question? Councillor Ashley?
I'll speak in favor. I think that we go at 20%. If for some reason things start to head downhill, we can always bring it back. So this kind of it helps people to plan, but it allows maybe people aren't going to get hit as hard.
Councillor Rice?
I'm not going to vote in favor of the amendment. I think one of the reasons we had this was so that a council every 3 years, every new council would be able to review this. And I think it's pretty realistic for a 20%, 40% reduction over these many years. It's not for example, the Bethel First Baptist Church parking lot will be exempted of $61 in 2013, but 2014 and 2015 they're exempted $46. So that's $15, which I think they could easily afford. Some of the other institutions which would have a significant would have higher costs. I think that if it is hugely problematic, that they could come to council, because it is a policy and it is up to us that we could we could allow for a different rate for that particular institution that is struggling. But I think it's wise for us to actually implement a 3-year policy, and I don't think it's unrealistic what we're expecting people to pay themselves.
Thank you. Councillor Thorkelson.
Well, I just want to. The reason I've made this amendment is because I believe a 20% cut is a big cut if you're trying to fundraise and raise that money. I think that's I didn't make it for parking lots. I made it for non-designated properties, which is basically the SPCA, the Moose, the Marine Rescue, Salmon Enhancement. The Legion already had a special exemption. The Radio Club, which I don't think we're going to go broke over a savings of $25. Curling Club, the Pacific #1 Pacific Place, Rod and Gun Club, Aboriginal Justice, Friendship House, Daycare, Cane Island Daycare, Cane Senior Citizens Housing, Transition House, Community Living, Community Enrichment, Seniors Citizens Housing Society, and the Senior Center Association. It seems to me that those organizations may have a difficulty raising the 20% that it's going to take, and I think a 20% cut, I don't know if any is difficult to replace. There may be some funding that you can put in place from the provincial government. I mean, if the provincial government was going to step in and fund the whole thing, then I'd say cut it by 100%. But I don't believe that's possible, and so I know that it's difficult to get gaming money for many of these organizations now. It's not easy to get. It's easy to get money for projects, but it's not easy to get money for easy capital money is easy. Project money is easy, and operational money is difficult. And so that's why I made that amendment. I think those organizations all make contributions to our communities, and 20% cut is a big cut. If next year and our taxes are collapsing around our ears and we need to do something about it, then, as Mr. Roden has said, we can amend that to and increase them to 100% next year if we feel like it. But I think 20% to plan for 20% cut over the next 3 years is enough.
Yeah. Councillor Carlick-Pearson.
I'd like to second Councillor Thorkelson's amendment, as well as I believe that it's, her rationale is very realistic, and we have to, unfortunately, safeguard many different avenues rather than, I'd like to be optimistic and think 3 years into the future, but realistically, the pace that we're going, we have to be cautious. So I'll second that.
Thank you. Councillor Rice, please.
Pardon me. Obviously, I'm not a very good listener because Councillor Thorkelson did not include parking lots of places of worships, and I'm jumping to conclusions. So I did want to say that I think she's made a very good argument that the non-designated properties would have a really hard time with the 20%, let alone 40%. So I will vote in favor of the amendment and the motion.
Thank you. Question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Under...
Your Worship, if
yes,
we could
sorry,
get the motion on the bylaw now as amended
yes.
by Council's most recent motion.
Okay. Do I have a...
If council could give first, second, and third reading to the 2013-2015 permissive tax exemption bylaw as amended by the previous motion, which gave the non-designated properties a 20% reduction in 2013 and no change in 2014 or 15.
Thank you. And a second? Thank you. Question? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Roden. In additional items this evening, as some of us are going to be away, we have to, Robert, I'll ask you to
Certainly, Your
explain this,
Worship.
please.
Very briefly, just to ensure acting mayor coverage in Prince Rupert during the UBCM convention, staff recommends that Councillor Thorkelson be appointed acting mayor from September 24th through to September 28th. The next day, September 29th, Councillor Kinney will take over the role again for the last 2 days of September, and on October 1st, Councillor Ashley fills the role.
Thank you very much. Moved by Councillor Ashley. Do I have a seconder? By Councillor Carlick Pearson. Question? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, report from the acting city manager on outstanding council initiatives. Is there any, Mr. Rode?
Yes, Your Worship. The written report was circulated to council and to the public, covering most departments in the city.
Thank you. We're moving on. Reports and questions from council. Councillor Ashley?
Just something I'd like to see us put onto the next agenda with the Northern Health coming forward and presenting and talking about the committee appointments. I'm wondering if we can get that put onto the next agenda so we can discuss it as a council, what we want to do with that.
Is there a seconder to that?
Do we need a motion? Or
do we need a motion?
That would be good.
I'll make it a motion.
Okay, and a seconder? Okay, Carlick Pearson. Question? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Councillor Rice, please.
I was thinking that it would be perhaps beneficial for the public to know that we are going to UBCM next week, the week of September 24th, and I was thinking perhaps staff or a previous councillor that's attended UBCM could just outline exactly what we do there and what we hope to accomplish there, so that the public's informed.
Thank you.
I don't know if someone would like to volunteer. I mean, I can explain what UBCM is, but I'm probably not the best person to do so.
Mr. Roden, please.
Certainly, Your Worship. UBCM stands for Union of BC Municipalities. It's a conference that almost all municipalities in the province of British Columbia attend. They send their senior staff and their council members. This year it's being held in Victoria. The big reason for going to these meetings is that the conference is also extremely well attended by provincial politicians. So basically, every cabinet minister will be there, the premier will be there, the opposition will also be there. City Council has arranged a number of meetings with cabinet ministers where we would go in and we talk to them about various issues of concern for our community and our region. We will also be talking to members of the opposition also. It's generally it's the big event on the calendar for municipalities during the year, and it's something that it's good that we have as many council members going as we do.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roden. Councillor Ashley?
I just wanted to quickly speak towards that. Just a lot of people question, us going and why, and Mr. Roden's done a good job of what happens there. But I think it's important for people to know that throughout the year, it is our best opportunity to actually put forward our strategic priorities and to speak to people that are actually in a position that can help us meet our priorities and our needs. And also, it's a chance for us to speak to the resolutions that are put forward by all across the province that affect not only our community but like the Northwest and BC as a whole, because it determines what gets put forward to the provincial government and what they would be looking at when they're forming policy. So it's not an opportunity that a community really wants to pass up. It's always good to have some people go. So,
thank you. Anything further, Councillor Thorkelson?
I was wondering if Your Worship, or if staff would know how our invitation to the port is coming along with the invitation that I made a motion at the last meeting to invite them to come and talk to us about the pellet plant.
Mr. Roden, please.
I'm going to ask Mr. Grudecki if he can give me a hand with this one.
Well, I'm sorry, Your Worship, but I'm not sure if we've heard back from the port at this time, and I'm not sure if the invitation went out. It didn't go out on my letterhead.
Fine. Would you look into that for us, please, Mr. Grudecki? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Thorkelson. If there's nothing further, I would like to say, on behalf of His Worship Mayor Jack Musalem, I attended the Filipino Club 39th Annual Party on Saturday, and it was absolutely fantastic. What those people have done for our city, it's just wonderful. And Councillor Carlick Pearson and Councillor Rice were there, and it was just a wonderful evening, and we were treated like royalty. With that, I would like to call for an adjournment so we can reconvene into our closed meeting, please. Second it. Question? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We'll take a 5-minute break. Thank you. Oh, Christ. I'm scared to death.